Good morning or afternoon, class. Today we are going to be reviewing solving proportions. By the end of today's lecture, you should be able to answer the question, how do I solve a proportion? So we'll be using one of the three methods. One, showing equivalent fractions. Two, cross products, which some students have been calling the butterfly method or the Band-Aid method, or unit rates. In class, we use mostly the cross products or the unit rates. So let's try one where we use our cross products. So I need to write this as equivalent. So I remember to times those two numbers together. I cross over the equal sign. And I do that. So now I have 9W, and then I have 36. So I rewrite the problem as 9W equals 36. Now I think to myself, what is happening to my variable or letter? And if I can't answer that question, I think through backwards PEMDAS. So do I have any parentheses? No. Do I have any subtraction? No. Do I have any addition? No. Do I have any division? No. Do I have any multiplication? Yes, I do. I have multiplication between the 9 and the W. So I think to myself, what's the opposite of multiplication? That's division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 9. So I type in my calculator, 36 divided by 9, and I get out 4. So if I put in 4 over 6 in my calculator, I'm going to get out 0.6 repeating. And if I put in 6/9 into my calculator, I'm also going to get out 0.6 repeating. So I know I have done this correctly. This step right here where we check it is optional, but I highly recommend it. All right. Let's try another one where we circle our opposite sides. So I say 12 times 15, and I get 180. And then I go 10 times A is 10A. I rewrite the problem. I like to write it so that my variable is always on the left. It just makes my life easier. So I rewrite the problem, and then I can either say what's happening to my variable, and notice that 10 is timesing my A, or I can go through backwards PEMDAS again, but I can see that those are timesing, so I put in my times sign. The opposite of times is divide, so I'm going to divide by 10. So now I have A equals 18. Alright, let's try one that's a little bit harder. Let's look at this story problem. Story problems seem to trip us all up. So remember, our CUBES acronym is we circle the key numbers, we underline the question, we box the math words or action words, we evaluate or solve, and then we simplify. So I'm going to read, the toll due on a turnpike is proportional to the number of miles driven. If I drove 100 miles and paid $7.50, how much would I pay if I drove 150 miles? Now in a case like this, we always need to set up our fractions, because I know it's going to be fractions because of the proportional. But I need to make sure I set things up based off of what it's telling me. So let's circle our numbers. I have 100 miles. I have $7.50. and 150 miles. Now, it also says, my question is, how much would you pay? So I know my final unit is going to be in dollars. Now, I'm going to box in some action words. And I know that my action word is proportional, so those fractions. So now I need to evaluate it. So it says the total due in a turnpike is proportional to the number of miles driven. So in an equation like this, remember that your units need to match. So here's my situation number 1. I'm going to circle them in yellow. That's going to make up one fraction. So I'm going to write 100 miles, and then I'm going to put $7.50 down there. So if I have money down here on the first one, I need to do money again. I know I'm trying to find money. Let me do that in green. Since I'm trying to find money, I'm going to put it down there, and I'm going to use that as my X. And I know I'm going to go 150 miles. In this problem, it didn't tell us which way to set it up, so we could have put our dollar units on top, but just remember, if you do that, your units need to stay dollars on top and money on the and miles on the bottom. So now I'm going to cross product. So here I have 100x, and here I have 150 times 750, and that's 1,025. So I set those equal to each other. Again, I like to write my x first, so 100x equals 1125. So divide by 100. So these are just the same steps that we have been doing. So when I type this into my calculator, I end up with, don't forget your units, $11.25. That's how much I would have to pay. And this makes sense because when I just drove 100 miles, I paid $7.50. So I'm going to increase the miles I drive, so my final answer needs to also increase. Now, if I did the bottom question, I'd set it up very similarly. I would use that initial fraction that we were given in yellow, which would be 100 miles over $7.50. Remember, money is 2 decimal places. And then I would set up my other fraction to say 20 on the bottom because I've got $20 and X miles on top. And then I'd go through the process again to solve. Alright, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Bye, class!